We are live. This is the market update. This is the China versus the United States market update. And the winner is Bitcoin. I'm your host, Bill Noble. Want to know more? What's going on in the bond market? What's going on in private equity? Wait, there's a problem in private equity? What's that? Don't go anywhere. The Fed's coming in. They're coming in. That's it. They have to come in huge. The Fed is going to call the White House and say, hey, guys, go play golf. We'll take it from here. Get off Twitter now. The Fed's got to come in, and I'm going to show you why. They have to, right? We have another men behaving badly incident. It's like Friday the 13th. There's like 15 installments throughout the history of modern Wall Street. This is just another men behaving badly incident, this time with something going on in the Treasury bond market, which is extremely inconvenient, because Uncle Sugar has to do 39 billion 10-year notes. Today, I think, today's Wednesday, they have to do 29 billion 30-year bonds, as in sell them. No one is obligated to take the bonds. The bond market's falling apart. We'll talk about how that happened. And then we have Mr. I don't like Bitcoin, Jamie Dimon's earnings coming out on Friday. So let's see if the market's tolerance to buy another phony baloney earnings reports from banks. Bank of America is down 20% off the high. Bank of America was down 4% as of the production of this stream, with equities up. So the market's tolerance for any horse manure from legacy is zero. And if you've ever read the Bitcoin white paper or the Bitcoin standard or listened to Michael Saylor, you know what could happen here. Namely, seriously, you could wake up and Bitcoin could be at 150 or Bitcoin could be at 120, right? Here's to the Kool-Aid. Have some. It's either that or we do the market update from the cave we wind up living in. Those are the choices. Now, here's the argument for Bitcoin in case you're wondering what it is before we go into all this disaster, POR, you know what. Okay. I don't know. Equities have lost like 10 trillion in value. The treasury market itself is gigantic. I mean, they're doing what? They're doing 50, 60 billion this week in issuance. So let me ask you this. Are you saying that we could have $1 trillion a day disappearing from equities? We could have a range in the S&P where 600 billion in market cap is flying back and forth. In other words, if you hear that there's this huge range in equities, that means you have market cap over there changing by the hundreds of billions or by the trillions. And you're going to sit and tell me that we couldn't add 500 billion to market cap in Bitcoin? Somebody's asking about antivirus. Every day, there's a privacy headline. Every day. Like some guy who got busted by Brandon's DOJ just got his cell phone back the other day. I don't even know what the offense was. He tweeted, they picked him up, and they took his phone and never gave it back to him. There's one of these headlines every single day. Antivirus has a Solana and ETH cross-chain mixer that's decentralized. Now, that's a big mouthful, but they're building privacy products. You build when it's down so that when it turns around and goes up, and you can talk to John McAfee in Telegram. Are you telling me with some of the models that have come out, and we have talking holograms already, right? Seriously, I've seen these models. We're going to have talking McAfee. So, okay, everyone's down. It's at 2 cents. Everyone's bummed out. Okay. It was kind of like Black Monday. Somebody capitulated and just sold everything. Crazy. 2 million. Somewhere in this market, there is value. Like basically, it's Bitcoin, it's ETH, and it's antivirus. That's what I'm doing. I mean, as we speak, again, talking about, what's on sale and changes in market cap, World Liberty is puking ETH on top of the old 2017 high. And even if you don't want to be long ETH, now that everyone's out, including World Liberty, what happens if Bitcoin goes straight to 150? Are you telling me we can't add $500 billion to market cap? $500 billion. This market changes $500 billion in value before snack time, before coffee break. It's like, oh, coffee break, little coffee cake, cup of Joe. Oh, look, we did 500 billion today. By the way, if you want to know what's really going on, what's really going to drive this market higher, you want to check out the YouTube member area. LuxAlgo is invaluable, and I continue to believe they will be talking about the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve at the Bitcoin conference because they're going to have to change the subject, and Bessent is already doing it this morning, talking about stablecoins. Bitcoin goes to 75K, or Bitcoin sitting right here is the perfect time to be talking about A, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and B, I have to go back and find it, RFK's speech at Consensus last year, which I saw in person, right? The Orange Man rugged the crypto narrative from RFK, okay, because they saw what was happening, that the crypto bro vote was going to go his way. And he was talking about using Bitcoin as a way to back treasuries to a certain degree, and to a certain degree, back the dollar. How long do you think it's going to take for them to figure that out with defecation derby in full swing in TradFi? Like, this stuff going on in TradFi that is not understandable by the general public and is just not pretty. You have people trapped. And I think the Fed is already in. The Fed had an emergency meeting 3 days ago. What was that about? Hey, guys, I picked up the latest driver at the golf store. Want to talk about it? No. Right? Someone's calling them and saying, we're going to blow up. Or probably a bank. A bank is calling them saying the hedge funds that we do business with are going to blow up. And they're like, okay, what are we going to do? And if this gets bad enough, you're going to see them. This whole 25 basis points thing, oh no. You're going to see him huge. If you look at Arthur Hayes' Twitter feed, he's like, it's happening. The Bitcoin standard is happening. Like, this could happen very quickly. Now, of course, it can also go to zero. You know, everything can go to zero. Now, speaking of going to zero, while I'm just monologuing, before we welcome who's here, you know, you got to really be careful that if you have some sort of panic event, that Bitcoin dominance doesn't wind up at 70. Like, I think if there's a risk in crypto, that's the risk, is that Bitcoin goes straight up and sucks a bunch of capital out of crypto. So whatever altcoins you got, you better like them. Antivirus at 2 million market cap. I'm not happy about that market cap because of all the selling, but I mean, there's a lot of support between 2 million and zero, right? It's like it can only go down so much, and I'm okay with that. But you got to ask yourself about other altcoins. Hey, if this, Warren Buffett, I have a tweet somewhere in here. If you have an altcoin right now, can it go down 50%? Would you be okay with that? You should be, according to the way Buffett thinks, right? Toby Ward's like, I'm not selling. I don't know why everyone's puking ETH at 1,400. I mean, if you were going to sell ETH, you should have sold it when it broke 2,000. Now ETH at 1,400, you should be buying more because ETH does well. Gold and silver go up and the dollar goes down, which is in full swing as World Liberty is puking. Again, more Kool-Aid. Okay. Let's welcome who's here because I probably will be going off for an hour and a half. So I need the Eagle King to produce the show, but he can probably go out, pick up his dry cleaning, and get a ham on rye by the time I get done with this. Okay, today's Tech Bites with that McAfee emoji. What's up? Bob Marsh in the house. Legend the DJ. Looking for that Bitcoin banana curve. You know, some certain blonde individual has been talking about the Bitcoin banana curve in the YouTube member area, and I've just been looking at her like, lady, what are you talking about? Then I woke up this morning. I'm like, oh my God. This, you know, this could go bananas. Grandpa Keeter, what's up? Randall Dance, DC Precise. Burnt Toast and Coffee Time. Wow Lopez. Randall Dance. Nikolai. Members. Cosmic Contrarian. Digital Bobby. Bob. Yeah, the Fed needs to clean up the bond market. Oh, dude, the bond market. Dude, Uncle Sugar is selling into a debacle this week. I mean, the Fed's got to be in now. You have a failed 10-year auction. We will be living in a cave by Monday. GME is here, right? The move chart is screaming, right? The VIX of bonds, vertical. Vertical. Please bring back Biden and Kamala. It was a question of time. It's not a dumb question. It's not a dumb thing to say. Like, the pain is that extreme at this point. Cryptomon, right? Bob, Grandpa, Crypto Chronic, Miklo, what's up? A1, Donato, and of course, Bull Runner. Okay, so what have we got to go over today? Everything. Everything. Okay, so Jason, with 16,000 Twitter followers, has got 4 million. If this is right, he has got 4 million impressions. I just lost it. Okay, Jason has 4 million impressions on a tweet where he says, I'm sold out of American bicycles. And thank you, Mr. President, for helping me out with that. Okay. 4.7 million views. Okay. Bikes built in the US are selling out. Bikes manufactured overseas are reducing prices to stay competitive. Tariffs are impacting my business, and it's absolutely amazing. And that is the one person in 10 million that's actually making money in this environment. Okay. So we're happy for the guy at the bike store, but everyone else is, wondering WTF, and that's okay. That's okay. Now, talk about something that's bearish. This is bearish. Be cool. Everything is going to work out well. The USA will be bigger and better than ever before. And this smells a lot like the type of stuff that you would hear before Celsius and FTX. Don't worry. Everything's fine. We have it all under control. And they don't. They don't. They absolutely don't. To the point where you may have to see the Fed. You may have to see the Fed. Right. For example, if equities try to go up and there's a failed rally, oh my God. We'll go over to DeMark work. I mean, if you get a failed rally in equities, forget about it. We're going to go over this private equity problem and the fact that people may have to indiscriminately sell stocks. And if you have a system-wide meltdown here, that is the case for Bitcoin. Now, even if you don't have a system-wide meltdown, even if the Fed is able to hold it together, people may start figuring out that there's only one thing in the world to buy, and that's Bitcoin. That's it. It's all about Bitcoin at this point. Okay. Trump wants to bring back pharmaceutical tariffs. Excellent. Right. Hopefully we can still get our medicine. Right. Make the medicine here. That should have been obvious after COVID, honestly. I can't believe I said that. Okay. So I'm always saying, we've been told. I thought they were going to do the strategic reserve. I thought that's what we were getting told about. I didn't think we were getting told that, this guy was just going to basically declare war on China and launch on everybody he could launch on and just lean on everybody. But that should not be a surprise. I always said, you get what you voted for, right? Barack was a Marxist. That's what you got. George Bush was a cowboy. You got yourself a neocon cowboy, right? Biden and Kamala were talking about being hard left, and they went hard left. And then he was talking about FAFO, and we had no idea. Well, we had no idea the extent of the FAFO. We had no idea, right? This guy took, he took Barron's 9th grade economics project from NYU to the Rose Garden, and just, he just nuked everything. I don't know if he did it on purpose, but there are unintended consequences here, which I'm sure they were unfamiliar of. That includes Bessent, right? That includes Bessent. I mean, I don't know if anybody could be that smart to bet that, you could have the things that are happening here and that they were pre-planned, especially when it comes to what's going on in the bond market. Now, the good news is if they wanted to bring the Fed in, they're going to bring the Fed in. Hopefully it's not for some dire emergency, because this is all this close to a dire emergency. Okay. So if Trump announces at the end of the year, we're eradicating income tax for people making under $150,000. Zav, thank you for the super chat, sir. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. We're eradicating income tax for people making under 150. Midterms are going red Forget midterms. They'll want a third term. Okay. Well, it would be great if they eliminated income tax. Hopefully, we're not living in a cave by the time they do that. I think they are going to eliminate income tax because they're just going to have to do it as like a stimulus measure. The Japanese are going to have to hand out money, and so are the Chinese. Everyone's going to be unemployed. This is just like cough, cold, and flu all over again. They're going to seize the whole system, and everyone's going to have to print. We're going to do tax incentives and probably buy Bitcoin, and everybody else will have to hand out money. It's happening. I mean, the Chinese currency is falling apart. There's no way to stop that at this point. None. They may not want it to stop because it makes their goods cheaper, but eventually that can get out of control. And the only way to stop it is to have the Fed do something and lower rates and do QE. It's the only way to stop that. Because again, don't underestimate how out of control things can get, and particularly in the foreign exchange market, which is the original wild, wild west. Right? So Chinese want their currency to fall. Be careful. It can fall, but it may not stop. Tariffs are working for some people. Okay, they're definitely not working for the bond market. They thought they were going to be able to get rates down, and that blowing up in their face. Blowing up in their face. Now, it's blowing up in their face because you have yet another installment of men behaving badly. Right? Men behaving badly at Wall Street is like Friday the 13th. You have like 15 movies. Just never stops. Same movie every time. Never stops. This time they've done something in the bond market where they borrowed literally trillions to do this, to capture this eensy-weensy little spread. Let's make tons of money. Let's borrow a ton of money to bet on the sure thing. It's a sure thing, right? Okay. And every hedge fund in the world is doing it, so you know it's wrong, but they're doing it anyway with money they borrowed from banks. What do you think the Fed emergency meeting was about? So yeah, tariffs are working for the bicycle shop, not for hedge funds. Saudi announces 8 new oil and gas discoveries. Well, that's awesome. Considering you have massive panic hedging going on in oil futures because big oil companies said point blank, we cannot handle $50 oil. They all voted for the orange man for drill, baby, drill, assuming oil would stay at 80. Then Bessent comes out and is like, we want oil at 50. They're like, excuse me, that's not what we wanted. We're not profitable. So what do they have to do? They have to sell futures. Oil could be a prelude to what happens in other markets like S&P. Because when people don't know what to do, they just panic sell or they just panic hedge. They're like, okay, something's wrong here. Oh my God, sell something, do something. This is what caused the stock market to go down 40% in 2008. Stock and mortgage-backed securities, sludge, I don't know, it didn't have a direct connection with equities. They just looked at S&P futures like, oh my God, sell something. We can't sell our mortgage-backed securities. Now, I don't know. That could be Treasury. That could be long bonds in this case. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like people in legacy are like, well, you see this blow up happening, but nobody knows how it plays out. Nobody knew. I mean, the charts for equities were awful in 08, but I don't think anybody was calling for 40%. We were calling for 20%. My downside target in S&P back then was 1,000. It went to 666. So I don't know what can happen. You can also have something positive happen on the upside where everybody just goes, oh my God, this is the case for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin just goes straight up. Now, possibly at the expense of alts. So something insane is going to happen here. Just insane. I remember this from the other day. And I sat here and I looked at this and I was like, Michael Saylor says, if people in the rest of the world knew what I know, Bitcoin would go to 10 million tomorrow. If you have more time than money, then volatility of Bitcoin is a gift for you. Bitcoin would go to 10 million tomorrow. So he was at the crypto summit and he may talk to Arthur Hayes and who knows? What does Mike know that we don't know? How about something's about to blow up? Now, this, by the way, it could be him. That's not what he's referring to here. As Bitcoin gets 10% away from his average price. But what does he know? Well, I'll tell you what he knows. I'll go through most of it. It's all on Arthur Hayes' Twitter feed. It just has to be translated into English, which I'd be happy to do for you. Okay, so Orange Man doing what Orange Man does, right? FAFO. Reminder, Orange Man was the pretty boy front man for the Atlantic City Mafia back in the day. That's where FAFO came from, right? Like this hat. This hat, that's an Atlantic City Mafia hat. Okay, so what's he do? Well, he doubles down. He's like, yeah, everyone's kissing my butt. Everyone wants a trade deal. Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure they do, right? Because they don't want their economy to get completely nuked, and they know he's not playing around. If he doesn't care about his stock market blowing up, and he probably doesn't care about the bond market blowing up either, although he should. But he's talking too much trash. This is not an environment for trash talking, especially if the Fed is about to take control of your life, right? China has ripped us off left, right. Now it's our turn to do the ripping. We're at war with the Chinese. I mean, the Chinese have been at war with us for 40 years, right? They've been trying to undermine us, and they want us gone. They're communists. They don't like us. Period. End of story. Communists would kill their own people. Never mind us or whatever, right? So we're over it. We're done. Matter of fact, when they did this whole tariff thing, they should have made it about them. They should have said, you know what? We are absolutely 100% done with you and all these other countries. You're next unless you make a deal. If that was the messaging, you would not have the debacle that you have. But if you're talking about seizing global supply chains, I don't know. I mean, the big supply chain is with China, so maybe it would have been as bad, but the messaging stunk, right? Barron's 9th grade economics project will go down in history. The left will be holding that up at the midterms. That will never go away. Okay. They played around and find out, but the Orange Man is digging in, and so are the communists. So the only person who can fix this is Bitcoin and the Fed, because they have created a monster problem. And I think the Fed is in. I think they're in now. They're in now. They got high-powered money coming in the system. Otherwise, this would be a complete mess. They read the news too. They had an emergency meeting 3 days ago. U.S. president, 104% tariffs on China. Okay. Well, that's going to work out well. My partner always comes to me. She's like, oh, I got these pants on Amazon for $30 and Free People, my favorite store, it sells them for $120. Like, this individual has more Free People clothes than Free People. She could open a Free People store with just her inventory, but you can get it on Amazon for $20. Okay, well, that's over. That's done. That's done. Matter of fact, as I understand it, Amazon is putting stuff on the website that says, this is the price of the good. This is your import tariff thing, and this is your total. Bessent asked about removing Chinese stocks from U.S. exchanges. Everything is on the table. This war, right? They want their currency, their stock market. I mean, the Chinese don't care about, they care about the stock market because that was their way of holding up, the embarrassment of their market never going up while our market went up, right? They're just like, we're going to crush their whole system. It's war. It's war, right? Their currency is going to collapse. Their equity markets are going to collapse. Their property markets have already collapsed, and we have our own problems. So let's nuke the entire system. FAFO. I didn't really think we were going to find out like this. Amazon cancels all orders from China. U.S. Secretary of Defense says we're taking back the Panama Canal. Get out. Not an unjustified comment. We're sick of Chinese influence. Chinese have been creeping into South America for years. Decades. Chinese are like, hey, we'll build a road if you give us whatever. We're over it. Not an unjustified stance geopolitically. Right now, when you start throwing this all in and we start mixing it with men behaving badly, which they were unaware of, then things get interesting. Okay, U.S. dollar hits highest level, Chinese yuan collapsing. By the way, this was the new global reserve currency. Don't think so. They may not be able to stop this from going lower. They may not. They don't want to. They want their goods to get super cheap. The problem is, it can become a currency crisis, right? Like if, the Fed will have to come in and stop it at some point because central bankers are not like geopolitical leaders. the Central Bank of China, right? The People's Bank of China, I think it is, will call the Fed and be like, yo, man, we got to stop this. It's out of control. You cannot have, when you start having what they call like large outsized movement, like everything in legacy works on a spreadsheet, right? So there's a 99% chance that we'll be okay with this trade. And then the 1% thing happens, and then boom, everything blows up. It's happening right now, right? Nobody was expecting $10 trillion to get erased from the U.S. equity market. And again, as I said earlier in the show, if you're erasing market cap in trillions and having intraday ranges of hundreds of billions of dollars, people, you can have Bitcoin at 150 tomorrow. You can have Bitcoin trading like an altcoin. They're trading S&P like an altcoin. Now, is Bitcoin a risk asset? Is Bitcoin going to decouple? Yeah, probably as soon as the Fed comes in with like 75 basis points in QE, if this gets out of control. Again, they're probably in now. Okay, so the Chinese put 84% tariffs on our goods. I don't know. I don't know what we sell over there anyway, but yeah, okay. They're not happy, and they're trying to save face. They're trying to talk tough, right? They're trying to. China issues risk alert for Chinese tourists traveling into the United States. So what they're doing is they're prepping their population to blame all this on the United States. That might not be, that might be accurate. You know what I'm saying? It's like, basically they're telling their people war has been declared. And if their factories shut down, they're going to have to do helicopter money. I don't know that affects crypto, but the one way to get it to Chinese is social disorder. Shut all their factories down and have everybody go home and be unemployed and let that sit there for a month and then see what happens. That's what they're doing. Shut their factories down and have social disorder, because that's the one thing the communists are afraid of. The communists will capitulate if they smell social disorder. That's their biggest fear. They don't care about their stock market. They don't care about any of that. I mean, they do, obviously, but social disorder is scarier. So if you shut down the factories, you could have people rebelling. What are they going to do? Go to the American embassy and throw rocks? No, they're going to blame them. Right? That's why he's trying to set this up. They cannot have social disorder. Why America holds all the cards in the trade showdown. Be careful with that. They're communists. They'll push back. Communists have no problem killing their own people. They don't. Historically, look it up. They don't. Just don't underestimate these guys. Don't. But I don't blame the orange man for leaning on them. What I blame the orange man for is the messaging and how this nuked the market. That's where they screwed up. And then the hedge funds, the men behaving badly is epic. China says we're prepared to deal with all uncertainties. I doubt that. Japan said it will not sell U.S. Treasuries based on U.S.-Japan relationships. Of course not. Our Treasuries yield 4%, right? Yours yield not much. Now, that said, that's also a warning. Hey, don't be stupid, because we will walk away from your Treasury market, even though that's what you're trying to get us to do, which I'm sure is what they want. It's like, look, all we need you to do is buy Treasuries and everything will go back to normal. That was their original plan before this certain trade blew up in the bond market. Apple flies 5 planes full of iPhones to avoid tariffs, a great publicity stunt to try to shame the orange man. Okay, I don't think 5 plane loads of iPhones is going to make a damn bit of difference. Okay, not at all. Basically ensures that their employees can get iPhones, probably. Okay, it's just like, embarrassing. And I don't even know why the factories, they needed to accelerate whatever they were doing. The orange man's been coming in power and talking about this for a long time. I know it takes a really long time to build a factory, and the price of iPhones is probably going to $3,000 no matter what. If anything, it makes the case for the Solana phone. President Trump has passed the tax cut bill now, and our country will boom. Okay, nobody under $150,000 a year is paying taxes. So, that's a given. Helicopter money has to come out of this. You cannot have a cough, cold, and flu like March 2000 seizure in the global economy and not do something about it. They have to do something about it. Even the left will say, well, the orange man blew everything up, so we had to help you out with this. This is a win-win for Congress. They're going to have to change the subject. Tax cuts, helicopter money, and the Bitcoin strategic reserve, I think, is also a possibility. I mean, Michael Saylor and Cynthia Loomis have been on their own for I don't know how long. And then they're going to pull I am going to get the speech out. I was there for RFK talking about backing bonds and backing the currency with Bitcoin. And all we need is a 10-year or a bond auction to possibly fail or go so badly that they go, maybe we should do that Bitcoin thing. Maybe we should trot out the sovereign wealth fund and have them start pushing the button. Treasury Secretary Wall Street has grown wealthier for 4 days, right? So for the next 4 years, it's Main Street's turn. Okay. Now, what you don't realize, this is fine. This is okay rhetoric. But there's this whole concept of reflexivity, right? Stocks go down, things get volatile, CEOs panic, start firing 10%. That's possible. Right. Yeah. Now it's great for the guy in the bicycle shop. And I don't doubt this, right? It's just, people here can't get jobs, but ironically, they didn't address the H-1B visa problem, right? It's like, companies can import super cheap people. If they just took care of that, that might actually help Main Street more, but whatever. They're going to wreck the market to take on the Chinese. They're going to wreck the market to get better trade deals. And they're going to wreck the market because they have to buy $9 trillion worth of bonds, and they have to bring the Fed in to actually do something. And that may be it. Maybe Bessent just says, let's blow up the whole world and make the Fed have to come in. Let's force them to do it. Because they can't just sit around and watch the whole system come unglued. The ECB will call them, the Bank of Japan. Why do you think everyone's flying over? You think you think the president of Japan is flying over Toyotas? No, of course that's not it. Absolutely not. Right? He's like, well, wait a minute. Our bond market is teetering, right? Our population is shrinking. Dude, we are this close from blowing up. Literally, the Japanese are that close from blowing up. To the point where they're like, yeah, we're just going to let inflation in our country be out of control. We've wanted inflation for a while. We're just going to leave it. We can't be responsible for blowing up the whole world. They don't want to blow up. So they call the orange man and say, let's talk about it. It's not about Toyotas. Okay. Bicycle shop guy. Okay. Treasury Secretary Bessent says China can raise tariffs, but so what? Okay. So let's talk about this. So everyone's all postured up and all super macho. Enter men behaving badly. Absolutely spectacular meltdown. The basis trade is blowing up. A multi-trillion-dollar liquidation panic. So we have hedge funds borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars, right, to collect this little spread by, doing something with long bonds and long bond futures, something like that. Right? This little teeny weeny spread. So let's borrow all the money in the world that we can to collect this little teeny weeny spread. And then what happens when the little teeny weeny spread breaks or it goes the other way and it inverts? Whoops. The computer model said this couldn't happen. Where is this on the spreadsheet? Oh, it's not on the spreadsheet. Oh, wait, we're short these long bonds. Oh, we're long a bunch of 30-year bonds and our trade's going the wrong way. We're getting a margin call. Oh, you better sell the 30-year bonds. Wait, what do you mean there's no bid? Wait, what do you mean? Uncle Sugar is selling $29 billion on Friday and we have to sell? That's what's happening in the bond market. Or it was up until today. You had movement in the bond market. I could go into the whole details, right? You had movement in the bond market that you haven't seen since 1982. And even back then, rates were at 14% and you had this kind of movement. Now you have rates at 4%. It's insane. I can explain it to you, but you might not get it. You have price action in the bond market that is not on anyone's spreadsheet. It's on no one's bingo card. It is crazy. And Uncle Sugar has to issue bonds. In other words, sell into that. If this blows up, you are going to see 75 basis points and QE that day. Matter of fact, I think the only reason equities aren't lower as I'm talking is because they know the Fed has got the sugar loaded. This cannot happen. It cannot happen. Even if the Fed is a card-carrying agent of the deep state, no way. No way. You cannot have the Treasury market come unglued, no matter how dumb, POTUS is on truth. It just can't happen. You probably got other central banks already on the phone going, yo, what is going on over there? You cannot have this blow up because it's multi-trillion. Now, of course, flip that over to Bitcoin. If we have a multi-trillion dollar blow up, are you saying we can't add $500 billion to Bitcoin's market cap? with World Liberty puking ETH at the 2017 high. ETH does very well. Gold, silver up, dollar down. ETH does good. And of course, you're going to try to tell me that we don't need a new form of finance after this debacle. Do you know why we don't have RWA and DeFi? Because there's been no motivation. Okay, well, if we have a black swan, orange swan, nuke, oh yeah, you're going to find out why BlackRock wants everything on chain. They want to access capital markets without the banks. You know, Jamie Dimon's earnings are coming out Friday, and if he tries to tell everybody that it's all sunshine and roses, no one's going to believe that. I actually think it would be better if he actually came clean and said, yeah, we have these problems. It would be at least honest. If he comes out and says everything's fine, no one's going to believe that. And that stock and banks are going to fall apart. Right? Again, you know, how much of this can the Fed look at? How much of this can they look at? You know, they were looking for Black Monday in stocks. They didn't get it. Okay. I think the thing with stocks that you have to remember is that if there's a panic, the S&P futures are the thing that they sell. But it would also be funny if the debacle wasn't in equities, it was actually in bonds, which again, you know, they wanted to get rates down and the 30-year mortgage is going up rapidly. So if you have nobody able to buy a house 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago, and it actually spirals up as in the mortgage rate, and then unemployment starts, they turn the keys into the bank and they walk away. And you'll be buying houses like altcoins. You'll be buying them 80% lower. That's not exact. Well, I mean, Main Street does win because they will be able to come in and buy a house, you know, but if you own a house and you try to sell, it's over. So yeah, they'll get housing down. They'll get it down. It just won't be pretty. Like this is happening. And there's another part of this that people don't understand. Fed urged to bail out hedge funds, trillions at risk, March 28th. Okay. Look at this. Something has broken in the bond market. Since Friday's close, the 30-year yield is up 56 basis points in 3 days. So each basis point in a 30-year bond interest rate changes value of those bonds massively. It's called dollar value of an 01 in jargon. The last time the yield rose this much in 3 days was January 7th, 1982, when the yield was 14%. This kind of historic move is caused by forced liquidation, not human managers making decisions about the outlook for rates at midnight Eastern time. Now, are they done liquidating? I don't know. But the Fed's going to have to take all their bonds down, and they're going to have to buy the bonds from the government directly. And I think that's the only reason why stocks are not down. And when you look at Arthur Hayes' Twitter feed, which we will, this is the case for Bitcoin. This is why Satoshi wrote the white paper. So either Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated and we're all going to live in a cave, or you're going to turn around and Bitcoin's going to be up $50,000. Because it's the only thing that makes any sense. Hello, Goldman. Has Beijing threatened you with losing access to local markets if you cut the Chinese GDP forecast? That's kind of naughty. Goldman probably doesn't want to add fuel in the fire. No economist does. Right? It's like Chinese GDP forecast, our GDP forecast. It's like, you know, it's all the same thing. Right? They're gonna seize this whole thing up for a couple of quarters. This is not a problem that gets unwound overnight. Right? This is going to take some time to sort out. And frankly, in my opinion, the longer it takes to sort it out, the more parabolic Bitcoin can go. Now, I don't know if they take Bitcoin down in the short term, but I suspect, I don't know why they would. Like, for example, if everyone came in to buy Bitcoin tomorrow, who's the seller? Who's the seller? I've talked about this before. Who's the seller? It's not BlackRock. It's not Michael Saylor. Where are you going to get the Bitcoin from? Especially the whole, I mean, you know, the general public is so over allocated towards stocks. They're so over allocated. Now, they can just move within their stock portfolio. I mean, if an allocation in Bitcoin goes from 2% to 5% inside big funds, that's 120. Okay, so Ray has got the full end of the world. I mean, he already wrote it, but he's got it all queued up. Doomberg is only too happy to print it. A once-in-a-lifetime collapse is underway. Somebody walked into Jerome Powell's office this morning and put this article right on his desk. Right? See, that's the thing about the internet, right? Like Jerome Powell sees this, and Jerome Powell does not want to go down in history as the guy that let the system just blow up, because the system could blow up here, right? You have volatility in equities and bonds that you just do not see. And we may be in like the third inning of this. I mean, Liberation Day was what? I mean, what was that? 2 weeks ago? It's not even a week ago. Okay, Arthur Hayes. So, if Bessent decides to cancel the Treasury auctions, that is stealth money printing, because he will run down the Treasury, the Treasury QA form instead. This is an intermediate step to quell the chaos before Jay Powell does his duty. Arthur Hayes is not mincing any words. Okay. So the central banker wanker goes, oh no, we got to do something. Elephant walk party begins shortly. Whatever they decide to do, it will be some flavor of money printing, love, and kisses. Japan Ministry of Finance, Bank of Japan to hold meeting. Bazooka. Bazooka. We are greenlit for the Fed. Move. Forgot about this. This was Arthur Hayes was looking at VIX. This is the VIX of the bond market. This is the fear metric in bonds. At the premium zone, I don't know, man. VIX stopped at its premium zone. If this just sits here like this, I don't know where this is on a weekly basis. So this is weekly. Okay. Now, if you look at this move thing on a weekly basis, it's the bigger the base, the higher in the space. And, you know, I don't know if the Fed watches the show. I know the Fed used to read my work when I was at Goldman, because every time I would say the charts would break down, they would do QE. To the point where I was Kramer for like a year. Yeah, this is 200. And if it goes there, you know, we may be living in a cave. I don't know what happens to Bitcoin under those circumstances, but I know the second this stops and the Fed comes in, Bitcoin goes straight up. Like parabolic banana higher, right? And I don't understand why no one else sees this. I don't understand. The Fed is on the clock. Things are breaking, right? Stocks down, bonds down, right? Stocks down, yields up, bonds down. Disaster. Bitcoin. Okay, so a sudden lack of liquidity from Grok is the best way to describe what's going on in the bond market, right? In other words, everyone's losing money and nobody can borrow more because they already bought enough. High leverage amplifies leverage. It amplifies losses. The article explains that big hedge funds take modest amounts of money, 20 or 30 billion, and leverage it up to 200 billion to do these trades. And again, that's not the little sliding dial on Binance, right? You don't just go from 20x to 50x. It's like chips. No. They borrow 100 billion. Hundreds of billions of dollars get borrowed to do these trades. I don't know. Hedge fund regulatory assets. So hedge funds have huge leverage. All the leverage of all the hedge funds, like, I don't know, there's a hedge fund that's 11.6x leveraged. Somebody lent them that money, right? Someone lent them that money. Now, Treasury Secretary Summers said U.S. may be headed for a serious financial crisis. Okay. Larry knows all about this, right? And I know this is a good picture, and I know he doesn't care, and I know, but they may discover unintended consequences. Every big mistake, every recession, every economic downturn throughout the history of the world can be tied back to policy error from governments. I know you may like this guy. You know, he's cool. Guess what? Still government, which goes back to my argument for antivirus, right? There's no argument for antivirus. There's no argument for privacy, unless you're trying to post on Facebook in England, right? There's no argument for this. No argument for like personal freedom or the AI agent of some guy who can like tell everybody that, hey, this is bunk. What AI agent do we have telling people that, hey, maybe this is not the right thing to do? Okay, so just in case you think we're not having enough fun, Financial Times shows big investors are looking to sell out of private equity. What's private equity? Well, you know, it's like lending money to a startup, small or big. So here's what a good friend of mine wrote. So pension funds and endowments want their money back. They're like, uh-oh, we have losses, right? Remember the barking dogs? You have the stock dog starts barking. The bond dog starts barking. The commodity dog starts barking. The private equity dog starts barking. And people are like, yeah, I want to sell. I want my money back. I invested in your fund. Now sell. I want my money back. Sorry. We're holding illiquid investors. We just can't market sell Red Lobster. The race to find liquidity signals that investors in private equity increasingly expect to receive few cash profits from their holding. Oh, wait a minute. You mean we borrowed a lot of money, or we invested a lot of money, or we had a huge amount of assets under management? We were long to the gills, and now there's no bid. Everyone wants their money back, and there's no bid. None. This is why BlackRock wants tokenized assets. He wants this stuff tokenized so that it trades like a normal market. The conclusion of this private equity thing, most people don't want to sell below 80 cents on the dollar on the fund's assets. But this time could be different because now the pressure is very real. Everyone was hopeful the private equity machine would start up again. Remember January when everything was go, go, go? Yeah, Going, gone. Going, gone. This is the headline that you're not seeing, right? In other words, what happens if these people, if this starts coming unglued? Again, the phone is ringing at the Fed going, we can't sell. And it's pension funds, right? Pension funds are long MicroStrategy's paper. So Michael Saylor cannot blow up. He could, but he can't. The whole preferred stock market would blow up. Michael Saylor is too big to fail. You will hear undoubtedly, oh, Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated. But you won't hear about this. This is what you should be worried about. The Treasury market and the private equity market that's not tokenized. You know, I was on another show today, and we noticed that OHM was the only one of 3 tokens that were actually up over a certain period of time, despite this defecation derby. You know why we don't have DeFi? You know why we don't have RWA? You know why everybody did memes instead of tech? Because there was never an urgent need for it. There was no urgency. It's like, yeah. Well, yeah, I used to work for a company. Yeah, total crypto, everything market cap is going to 10 trillion. We're going to put everything on chain. And people were like, oh, that's nice. Let's buy Turtle Coin. There's nothing else to do. Now, it's like, uh-oh. We better get all this on chain yesterday. That could bring in some FOMO. Governance tokens. Aave pushed out of a moving vehicle. ETH. Oh my God. This all runs on ETH. ETH with all of its layer 2s. You can't print that software with a chatbot. They've been building that and building it and building it and building it. And now all of a sudden people might actually need it. Ruh-roh. And World Liberty World Liberty is puking ETH at 1,400. Holy God Almighty. Like the world has gone mad. Okay. Here we go. Right on cue, boys. Dummies are predictable. Here we go. President Trump's executive director of digital assets said they are ushering in a golden age of crypto at 10:47 a.m. on April 9th. They must watch the show. They must watch the show. They got to change the subject quickly. And you know what? They were like, well, we need 60 days to figure out. Yeah. Yeah. No, bro. Actually, you got 6 days to figure it out. Less than that, because you got to issue the 10-year note and the 30-year bond. You got to make an announcement that we're going to buy Bitcoin, or the sovereign wealth fund is going to buy the Bitcoin ETF. Trot out Cynthia Loomis and said, going forward, we're going to use Bitcoin to help back treasuries. RFK's got the speech. Again, I got to get it out. I got to find it. Right? This is happening right now. Right? And of course, yeah, okay. So we got problems with our currency. Let's do BRICS. Let's make the Chinese currency, the Chinese toilet paper. Let's make that the world's reserve currency. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You want to spell BRICS? Spell it with this B, homie. Spell it with this B. How long is this going to take for people to figure this out? Necessity is the mother of invention. Like when, lost it. Oh, here we go. Greenland is a great idea, right? Assets minus liabilities equal equity. They want to get Canada and Greenland on the books. I'm not sure Canada is exactly our side. I actually read something the other day that Canada, in some intelligence report, Canada was identified as a national security threat because it's a pipe for the Chinese to, undermine our trade policies or whatever. The Orange Man is not playing around about anything. We just need the Orange Man to get back on subject. Bank of America down 3.8% as of 9:42 a.m. on April 9th, down 20% over the last week. We got no patience. Now, what does this have to do with crypto? You've got to be prepared when you buy a stock to have it go down 50% or more and be okay with it. So if you have an altcoin, like I said to myself, if ETH goes to 750, I'm going to buy more. Right? If Michael Saylor gets liquidated and Bitcoin goes to 35, I'm going to buy more. And if it goes to 20, I'm going to buy more. That's how I feel about those two cryptocurrencies. Right? Antivirus is down. Antivirus, in my mind, it's like whatever they want to do with antivirus, near 2 million, that's it. That's my position. May not be your position, and I may get smoked. But Warren's right. Like, you don't make money, you make money adding in the stuff that's obvious when it's down. And I think Bitcoin and ETH at this point are obvious. It's obvious. I mean, look at what's going on. The case has never been better. Now, a brief note about S&P. The S&P fell 10% in 3 days. That's one of the biggest 3-day decline anytime that's ever happened in the past. Stocks were higher 1, 3, and 5 years out every time. So this will take 2 quarters to figure out. The longer it takes to figure out, the higher everything goes, and Bitcoin is going to lead its way out of the hole, right? Like, stocks may come back, they may not. The AI trade will happen, right? Bitcoin will benefit from the AI trade. Maybe it takes an AI agent to come on the tape and says, stop being stupid. I don't know. But there will be some in the YouTube member area, we're actively discussing how to think about this going forward. Everyone's talking about tariffs and everyone's talking about the stuff that could blow up. That brings in the Fed. It brings in the Fed, right? And after they bring in the Fed, then what do you start doing? You start trading the future, which is what Charlie's talking about. Okay, so here's Michael Saylor's liquidation price. Okay. So in my opinion, whenever they start talking about Michael Saylor getting liquidated, that's when you buy. We did the same thing. Bitcoin was at 16 or 20. Somebody smart guy I know had 14 as a target. Everyone's talking about I'll buy it at 10 because he's going to get liquidated. His average price was like 48. He sat there and he looked at it for 6 months. I'm sure he's like, wow, this is really interesting. But he knows that something's going to detonate, and he knows the Fed's coming in. And he knows they're doing a strategic reserve. Oh, by the way, forgot about that. If you knew what I knew, Bitcoin would be at $10 million. If the rest of the people in the world knew what I know, Bitcoin would go to 10 million tomorrow. Wouldn't it be unbelievable if they turned around to change the subject and talked about doing what they said we were going to do, and everyone is bearish? Like fear, greed, and stocks is like 8% bullish. It's 15% bullish in Bitcoin. But everyone's talking about these guys getting liquidated. Galaxy Digital is going to go public, and it's going to be a raving success because they're going to go public right as Bitcoin goes bananas, either now or in 3 months. I think they should just go now and let everybody buy it at the low. I'm sure they would like to raise more money. Okay, so a word about XRP. So XRP ETF is live. XRP did not go up. That's just a fact, right? Okay, I know there's other XRP news, which I'm looking for, where, they bought a company for, billions of dollars to try to get into the real world asset game. I'm just wondering what that has to do with XRP. Their stable coin, they were talking about XRP Ledger, right? The Eagle King bringing it up. There's no one better. Okay, Ripple acquires a prime broker. Okay, but XRP did not go up. XRP in the day when this news was announced about real world assets, this would have been flying. So, yes, the point has been made. Yes. Okay. Yes, XRP has a value proposition. There are guys talking about, $12.50 by the end of Trump's term. That makes sense. It just didn't go up yesterday. It should have gone up, and it did. Now, I hope it holds. I really do. But I do think you have to be careful, and this includes ETH and XRP, but you have to be careful about Bitcoin, if it goes up, sucking a lot of capital out of the system. You just have to be careful of that. Maybe it's not a big deal. Okay. Here's Bessent. We will take a close look at regulatory impediments to blockchain, stable coins, and new payment systems, because I just screwed up and I need to change the subject. Ripple says we're going from 0.6T to 18T in tokenized assets. You bet we are, homie. You bet we are. A wallet linked to Trump's World Liberty Financial sold 5,000 ETH at 1465 ETH, leaving World Liberty with a $125 million loss. Feels like puking to me, right? Smells like teen spirit. Smells like capitulation to me, right? Selling ETH at the 2017 high. We're selling Bitcoin at Michael Saylor's average price. I mean, that, just so you know, yes, there is talk about being liquidated. Yes, Michael Saylor's company had to file something that says, if we can't pay the interest on our preferred stock, these legacy instruments that we issued, we might have to sell Bitcoin. But that's a huge psychological number in the market. So we have ETH at a psychological number, and we have Bitcoin 10% away from a psychological number. This is a big deal. 100 was a big deal on the upside. I think 75 and 1,400 on the downside are legit issues. Okay, going to TA. So this is XRP, and here's what I can say about this, right? And we've talked a little bit about this. So there was a failed rally here. If you get a 9 bottom and then you get a failed rally, that's bad. It's just not good. I want to tell you it's good. Now, what would be good is a lot of times when you have this failed rally and then the count starts the other way, in other words, the trend resumes, that at this juncture, right, if you get a reversal on the upside, it can be this like giga bottom. Okay. Now, you do not want to see this rally fail either, right? Like, because technically speaking, at this stage of the game, it's a bear trend, and this is where you should be getting short. And I really hope that's not the case. Really hope so. You're praying for the reversal higher. Now, speaking of reversals, right? Solana has got the 13 and the 9 bottom, but we need some punch. And if we don't get it and it takes out this, I don't know. And I'm hoping that Bitcoin acts as the rising tide that does lift all boats. Now, Stonks. Really, I think this all circles around Stonks, right? So you have the 13 bottom in S&P. This is SPY. Then you have the 9 bottom today. Okay. So that's probably holding up Stonks right now, along with the Fed, or the idea that the Fed's coming in. The Fed has to come in. There's no way you can issue all these bonds without the Fed already at the trigger, just pushing money in the system. They have to be doing it now. Otherwise, I don't know how this 10-year note auction, how it doesn't fail, right? I mean, they have to do it, and they're probably doing it in a major way. So that helps equities for now. Now, again, as I've noted, right over here, if you look at this closely, right, this is the 9 bottom. This is the counter trend rally. Rally fails. Boom. Right? You do not want to see a failed rally anywhere in this market. Nowhere. You don't even want to see it in Bitcoin. Okay. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't have these markings on it. It doesn't have these markings, right? Bitcoin is just, I don't know. Bitcoin on the daily chart is just below the 78K bottom, right? So it's a 78, 88 range. You know, Bitcoin's not doing anything right now that's good or bad, right? There's like nothing on the 4-hour chart. There's just nothing. Okay. Now, honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with nothing versus ugly. Okay. Like 90 minutes. Okay. So the 90-minute chart of Bitcoin looks okay. You got a 13, you got a 9 bottom, and you don't have a failed rally. You have a, trending. This could go to 80. Now, what happens at 80? I don't know. Just can't believe when you look at what Arthur Hayes has on his Twitter feed, right? And his whole idea of the Fed like coming in massively, right? Like the dollar. This is an 89-minute chart of the dollar. Is this trend resumption? It is for LuxAlgo, right? The discount zone in the dollar index is not until 101. That's like a full point below where we are now, right? Now, if you look at so this is, just to drive the point home. This is 30-year yields just tactically, right? So you can just see what happened here. Right? Everyone was like, you know what? Let's go up. Now, has that reached its limit? Yeah, it better. Or it's going to bring the Fed in. This cannot go lower. I'm saying those yields cannot go higher. Okay. This was supposed to be constructive. This is devastating, right? Now, as you had a head and shoulders bottom in long bonds, like the futures contract, the price, you broke out, it looked glorious, and then you had a false breakdown. Then it wound up back at the discount zone. Like the Fed is looking at this and going, this cannot happen. This cannot happen. Okay. So if we look at Bitcoin dominance, okay, so the good news for crypto is that Bitcoin dominance only has like 1 or like 1.5 point, like a full point before it's at the premium zone. That's on this is Bitcoin dominance daily. So maybe that's not so bad for altcoins. Maybe not. Right? We certainly don't want everything to melt down, but if you have a failed rally in S&P, you may have to say to yourself, what coins am I going to get into that I can tolerate a 50% drawdown on? Like what can I tolerate? This could be it. Like to me, it feels like Bitcoin. It feels like Arthur Hayes is just absolutely right as rain. Right? So the good news is on a weekly chart, Bitcoin dominance is like reaching this point where, it's got a lot of resistance. That's great for crypto, right? I would love to see DeFi. Like look at DeFi today. Let's look at DeFi on an 89-minute chart. Steve J's out there somewhere smiling, right? DeFi has a bid. DeFi is nowhere near its low and is up 4% today. I don't know what it's going to take before people figure out that they got to get decentralized crypto. We've had our men behaving badly incident already with FTX. We've had it already, right? And BlackRock is going to be aggressively out on the tape going, we need to get this done now. Or we're just going to go out harder and harder and harder and harder. I mean, I go back to this. I mean, the Orange Man's hedge fund just sold ETH on top of like what was one of the biggest technical levels ever. You know what I'm saying? Like this level, for all intents and purposes, I know this is a monthly chart, but for all intents and purposes, even though ETH went to 800, this level held. This level held in FTX, and right now you just have people selling ETH because there's like allegedly no use case when there is a use case, right? You could run the whole financial system on ETH and its layer 2s. Yet you have everyone puking at the 2017 high. That's just incredible, right? That's unbelievable. And there's a world of pain here. It's so embarrassing. I mean, I picked up ETH at 2100. I thought it was a genius, right? Now it's just everyone's getting smoked. I want to see if you have LuxAlgo buy signals on yeah. So you don't have it yet down here. You had it over here, but I don't know. You don't have it yet. So I can say what I want to say, but the problem with the market from a technical analysis point of view is that there's been an absence of reversal signals, been an absence of something good. Even though conceptually, I don't understand how you could not be doing it at these levels, right? I don't understand how Bitcoin does it. The risk in Bitcoin is that it goes down 10%. The upside risk in Bitcoin is 40 to 50% because you're changing value in other markets in the like, you know, in the multiple trillions. So, I mean, you can wake up and this can happen, especially if you got a failed rally in equities. And don't forget, I mean, you got the 10-year note, you got the bond, and you got JP Morgan, 3 days. 3 days, right? I mean, this, you know, like I said, the equity market probably knows that the Fed has its finger on the button, that the Fed will probably let it happen. And then it'll just come in if they're not in now. And I would imagine Bessent is ready for Treasury QE or whatever mechanisms he has. Because if we know about this, if we're doing this on the market update with our friends here who we appreciate, right? And again, you know, in the YouTube member area, we actually talked about what the real glorious case for Bitcoin is. So this could get it started, and then there's a more glorious case out there, right? And, you know, it's an absolute non-secret that she has talked decoupling, and DeFi for a year. Guess what? It's here. It's here. I mean, you got the whole thing perfectly set up for this. Everyone's bearish. And every reason there literally ever was to buy Bitcoin is just nowhere to be found on Twitter. Nowhere to be found anywhere, really, except for this show. So I'm an idiot, and I've drank my whole glass of Kool-Aid. And I'm just wrong, and I'm going to get carried out, but I don't care because it's my money. I have it. And if I'm wrong, I'm getting carried out. But if I'm right, Bitcoin's going to trade like an altcoin because S&P, as I said, is trading like an altcoin. You know, they're swinging $500 billion in a couple of hours in equities. What's $500 billion in market cap between friends? That's bigger than ETH. That's way bigger than ETH. I don't know, man. There's a lot of DeFi highways, a lot of things that can happen here. Now, you can get altcoins caught in stocks. You know, there's negative things too. That's why you have to do the Warren Buffett thing and ask yourself, if something I own goes down 50%, am I going to lose it? And do I have to make the appropriate adjustments? Smash-a-Toki Smakamoto says, epic stream. Sir, we appreciate that. Jav came in with his super chat, which I really appreciate that too. And of course, this is a reminder to hit the notification bell, right? You want to know when we're going live. You want to know, right? Because I don't know how many people you got out there that really understand what's going on. Like Arthur Hayes and a lot of these guys are posting the disaster stuff, but I don't know that they're, I mean, he is, but I don't, he's like, well, this is what drives Bitcoin to 1 million. Okay. Well, we got to get an idea of what drives Bitcoin to 120. And I think this is part of it. So either we all get caught and I sink and we do the market update from a cave, or this is everything we ever wanted served to us on a platter and we're just turning our nose up at it. Okay. That is the market update for today. Visit the YouTube member area. The most unique content on YouTube. We will see you tomorrow